Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ. I am joined by Mr. Will. Tonight, we are talking about the crime drama classic Heat, starring Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and a whole host of other people that we are going to get into tonight. For those of you, if this is your first time joining Sticky Floors podcast, thank you for coming. Please hit that subscribe button. We're trying to build our subscribers up to 300 by the end of October. We made tremendous progress. We can make even more with your assistance. So please do that so we can keep delivering high quality content to as many people as possible. Mr. Will, what's up with you today?
Yeah, man, I'm good, man. Feeling good. About to talk about one of my favorite
Yeah, this
movies. Got you
Yeah,
on the
this
other
is this
side,
is
you know?
this is like Heat is like one of those movies where if you talk to somebody who says they like movies and they said they haven't seen this, you don't really think they like movies. So it's
Not
like
at all.
this is one of the defining kind of films. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, this is gonna be a good thing, man.
Yeah, definitely, man. So let's get right into it. And just to echo CJ's sentiments, please continue to like, subscribe, because this helps us to get better and better. And we love talking about these and other assorted movies. So tune in for the fun. Michael Mann's Heat is a crime drama and thriller action packed movie that boasts a
Mhm.
star filled cast, including Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. The plot revolves around the meticulous criminal mastermind Neil McCauley and the relentless LAPD homicide detective Vincent Hanna, both of whom are dedicated to their respective crafts. McCauley and his team, played by Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore, and Danny Trejo, execute a high stakes armored car heist, plunging into a world of twists and
There it
turns.
is, man. This is a movie, that first of all, that summary is great and it really captures exactly what the movie is. And I always think like Heat is not incredibly complex, but it's done well.
No.
Like Heat is like a good slice of pizza. Like good pizza is like
Mm.
dough, sauce, cheese. That's it. It's not complicated, right? But if you get it right, it's perfect, right? That's how Heat is to me. It's a crime drama, cops, robbers, bank robbers at that, and yet it just works as a story. It just flows because of how well it's executed.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me why you actually picked this movie, man? I'm still befuddled as to like we had been on a different narrative, and all of a
Heat.
sudden you're like
Yes,
Heat, and I'm
Heat.
like,
Yeah.
what?
Well, I mean, last
Yeah,
movie was Killing Him Softly, so that was yeah,
kind
and
of,
it was
sort of.
actually about
Yeah,
robberies too, and killing.
yes,
So
yeah, yeah, too.
we're kind of in the same universe now. It is much different than Dark Waters. I grant you that. But
Yeah,
but yeah, man, I remember seeing this movie in the movie theaters. So my
okay,
friend's dad, who loved movies, also took us to see this,
yeah.
and he'd take us to see everything. That's how I
Rest in
developed my
power.
love for movies, right? So shout out to Mr. Dawkins for always taking me and his son Joey, who
Yeah,
my best friend at the time, Joey, was also resting in power, to these movies, right? And
yes,
we
sir.
went, and I remember sitting there in the movie theater watching this and just being like, my eyes just wide open, like, what is this? This is like amazing, right? And over time
Yeah.
in life, I've always just come back to this movie whenever I just want to see something good and I can turn it on, I can just
Mm,
watch it any part and just feel connected to it. This is what this movie does for me. I know some people say like they
I
can read
dig
the
it.
same book over and over again. I can
Yeah,
just watch
yeah.
this movie. I just think it's so well done. And every time I watch it, I see something that I didn't see before. So I can't wait to get into that when we
Mm.
talk about it.
You know what? That's dope, man. First of all, the nostalgia aspect and the sentiments that you've expressed talk about the sentimentality that you have. I think that's dope, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate that, man.
Yeah, I
That means a
remember me and
lot.
my
Yeah,
friend, we used to
yeah,
always we did the, never have anything you can't walk out on in 30 seconds or less if you feel the heat comes around the
yeah.
corner.
The
Man, we
mantra.
said that from, like, our teenage years through, like, our mid-20s, right? It's just something that just stuck with us, man, because of just how much this
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
stuck with us, man. So it's a really good movie,
No,
and it's
that's
a fun movie to watch, and, you know, it's clocking in at almost 3 hours, and yet it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
it. It just moves
No.
along, and I
No.
think that's a testament to how well Michael Mann designs it. I know we're gonna talk a little bit about that more later, but it's just a very well-crafted film, and I think that's why people
Mhm.
just come back to it and say, "Hey, man, this is something I wanna see."
No, I can appreciate that, man. And like for the audience and for you, like what I try to do is watch the movie directly before
So do I.
we
Yep.
start
Mhm.
anything. Like so like I may watch it earlier, but then I'll come back so that's not only obviously that it's fresh in my mind, but like you, I may see something that I didn't see earlier in the week or years ago or months ago, or whatever have you, and I'm able to see it from a new perspective, being an older individual where I have brought certain things to the table now due to life
Yes.
experience or whatever have you. So in this case, I'm able to see certain things from a different perspective about
Yes.
relationships, for example, or about different gender roles, or about the state of events at that
Yeah.
particular
I mean,
time.
and that's the fun thing about coming back to art as you get older is that how you
Hmm.
see it changes as you change, right? You see the world through your lens,
Yes.
and our lens adapts and conforms to wherever we are at that particular point in our lives. So, when I watched this as a
Agreed.
teenager, I thought one thing about it. I watch it again as an
Hmm.
adult, I see things different, but the appreciation for the product that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
argue it probably
absolutely. Yeah,
grew
because now
exponentially.
I understand parts of it that I obviously wasn't gonna get when I was a teenager. But
Yeah, didn't grasp
yeah, yeah.
these notions.
So you
Like,
mentioned a couple of things that were like that you've seen about it, and one of the things you talked about.
yeah, like the
Right. So
behind the
like,
scenes,
yeah, so there's
the
a
camera
couple of
joint.
things that I know you wanted to lift up. So what were a couple of things like that?
Yeah. Actually, it's just 4 little tidbits I think that'll help provide that clarity as to why certain characters have certain lines in certain scenes or their actions or bodily gestures and things of that ilk. One, first and foremost, is that Robert De Niro's character, Neil McCauley, is actually a
Yes.
real life
Yep.
person. He was a real criminal who spent 25 years in jail. I thought that was very intriguing and
Yeah.
loosely based, yes, but
Yeah.
it's an actual person. Two, I think a great thing is that, well, not great as far as like morals and stuff, but there was an actual shootout in between the criminals and the police. So, this
Yeah.
wasn't fabricated. This didn't come out of somebody's imagination. Like this was,
Yeah,
grounded
and
in
and you
reality.
remember that
Three,
this somebody tried to do this in real life. It said that in real life,
yeah,
I mean,
no,
after
no.
the movie came out, they did like the real life heat
Oh
shootout in the
yeah,
middle of the street. Yeah,
yeah, oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that was the dudes with the
yeah, they tried.
helmets and the
Yeah,
body
yeah,
armor out in LA. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's been done twice. So that actually that sense of reality, that made me sit back and be like, wow, people are brazen enough. They put it all on the line, like, yeah, I can get away with this. Like that to me is like,
life
wow,
imitates art, art imitates life.
dude. Three, the actual sit down itself actually transpired too, where Neil actually sat down with the officer
Uh-huh,
from
uh-huh.
Chicago, Bronson, and they actually were like, "Yo, I can respect this about you. I can respect that." Da, 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 da. Like, I would have never thought that criminals and police could actually
Engaged like that, yeah,
converse in that
yeah,
type. Yeah, and it was in a restaurant. So that's the last tidbit. Like, it wasn't in a diner, but it was
yeah,
still in an eatery, and they still sat down and broke bread and conversed like two mature
yeah.
middle-aged
That I
adults.
mean, that so I actually didn't know that part, so that's a great tidbit for
Yeah.
me as well. And I think that that scene and just the movie in general, it just speaks to, like, what happens when you decide that you're and commit to telling the story, right? And,
Hmm.
like you said, they have good source material to work with because, Neil is based on a real
Hmm.
person. But one of the things that I really love about this film is that it takes the time to develop the characters. It's not interested
Yes.
in getting to the conclusion, and it's not also interested in getting to the next action scene. It happens, like, organically along with the film, but it's, like, very meticulously designed. And there's so much that happens in the movie, even when there's not shooting going on. Just like you said, Neil and Vincent
Right.
sitting together talking in a diner is an electric scene. There's no violence, there's not anything, no
No.
cursing, they're not wilding, Al Pacino isn't yelling and
Mm-mm.
acting crazy, right? But even still, it's, like, such a great scene because you can see that Michael Mann, the crew, the actors, they're all just dedicated to telling a story and making every scene, every moment as impactful as possible.
Yeah, I think the thing that really like hammers home for me, even though we just laughed about it, is the fact that it's subdued. The subtle gestures, the very quieted and hushed tones in which Al Pacino is talking and speaking, like his voice, it's not monotone. I mean, because you can still see the different inflections and the way he pronunciates and enunciates certain words. You can still feel that intensity behind them, the meaning and the purpose, but it's not him
Yeah.
overacting. And the same thing with Robert De Niro. His gestures of smirking,
Yeah.
raising an eyebrow, the hand on the chin, the leaning to his left or the audience's right, like these things, like it allows you to be like, wow, if I was a fly in the wall in this particular restaurant or diner, I would really be focusing on these two guys because they seem to be polar opposites, but really they're mirror reflections of each other. One looks all hazard and haggardly, like Al Pacino's hair is a mess, and he's flashy because he had that
Mhm.
copper suit on, and then across from him is Neil in maybe like a shark
Mhm.
gray, shark silver suit, very subdued, sitting back, like, who is
Yeah.
this guy over here? He thinks
Yeah.
he knows me. And the thing too that like really comes off very well is Neil is calm and collective, and he's done his
Mhm.
research on him. He knows who this guy is, but he doesn't reveal any of that. Like
Yeah.
he asked him,
Yeah.
"Yeah, but what
Yeah.
kind of guy are you? Huh?" Like he wants to hear it from
Yeah,
him.
it's really well done, and it's a testament to
Yeah.
the entire crew and what's put together here. And we've now been this is our 51st show, right? So we've covered
Hmm.
50 different movies. This is not the first time that we've done an Al Pacino movie. So if you go back to episode
No.
8, right, we did Any Given Sunday. So we talked a lot about just the career arc and the trajectory of Al Pacino. And he's obvious. I mean, like, I haven't ever talked to somebody who said Al Pacino isn't one of the top 5,
Mhm.
3, 2 best actors of all time, depending on who you talk to. And then Robert De Niro, we covered him in New Year's Eve, which was episode 21. And then most recently, episode 40, we did A Bronx Tale. So we talked a lot about him as
Yep.
well. And he's also in that same thing where 1 to 5, you're not going to talk to many people who love movies who don't have Al Pacino or Robert De
No,
Niro in their top. It's like,
not at all.
you're not gonna talk to many people who's gonna say they're not gonna have Magic Johnson in their top 5 basketball players. It's just one of those things. That's where they are. So to get the two of them together and interplaying with each other in this movie the way that they do, it's a treat as a moviegoer to just watch it, right?
Yeah.
And when I saw this movie in 1995, I was young, like, I didn't really know who these people were. Then, as I watched more
Right.
movies and came back to and watched movies that they made before this and after this, and I was like, "Wow, for these 2 guys to be sitting there going at each other like that, it's amazing."
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. For all the movie buffs out there, yes, they were in Godfather 2. However, as we all know, Al Pacino
Mhm.
played his dad,
Or Neil
and they weren't in
De
the
Niro
same
played
scene.
Pacino's dad. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, opposite way around. He played his dad, and they weren't in the same
Right,
scenes at the same time. So, Michael's reflecting on what
right,
Vito
right.
did at his age. Whereas in this case, you have two middle-aged titans going head to head. They are professionals in their prime
Yeah,
at what they do, and they tell you what you do. You try to stop guys like me from taking scores. What I do, I take scores. And then they both, they're unrelenting when they both say, look, man, push comes to shove, even though we have some type of respect thing going on, and maybe in another life we might have even been brothers, I will
yeah.
put you down. If it's between me or you and I'm boxed in, I will not
Yeah,
hesitate.
and that's the thing, and that line is delivered between both of them with such sincerity
Hmm.
that you see it and you believe it, right? And I know that one of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier was how the different characters, or 3 characters in particular, really reflect these different ideas of idealism, pragmatism, and real or pessimism. I'm sorry. So let me
Hmm.
punt that one over to you.
You know, yeah. And I don't think it's just these individuals as a whole. I think it's them and their respective
Oh,
spouse
right,
or
right, and
partner. So
right, yes.
because I think it's the volley between them that the audience sees on full display as far as like the temperament that they respectively it just innately have within them. That was kind of redundant, but you get my point. So with respect to idealism, Chris and Charlene actually think that they can like retire off of these criminal funds and that they
Yeah,
can have a family as with their son and like everything's cool. Like
yeah,
they have a nice house and he drives a Corvette and they're like, yeah,
yeah,
let's go out
yeah,
tonight. Like,
yeah.
let's
They're
go
doing the
chill,
American
date
Dream
night.
joint, right? They're
Yeah,
on that
that's not
program.
no, that's not realistic. I just
Yeah,
bodied somebody and I'm coming home with illegal funds. Like we should be relocating,
yeah,
leaving the country, not trying to
yeah.
plan date
They're
night.
different. And the thing is, man, Ashley Judd, what she does in this movie, right? Every time I watch this, I always think she's like right. She almost like it's not gonna sound like a compliment when I say it, but it's a compliment with the movie. I think she
Mhm.
does like high class trailer trash in this movie, like so well.
Oh yeah, no,
So well. Like
I
she's
echo
kind
that.
of got something to her that's a little sideways and off and not quite as refined. But then she also has these kind of things about her that show like she's trying to get there, right? And it works with Chris because
Agreed.
Val Kilmer's Chris is also kind of like sideways like that. And then later on in the movie,
Hmm.
when one of the black cop is talking to her, and she's like, yeah, and he's like,
Michael
"Yeah,
Eddie.
like, then your son is gonna end up in the foster care system and the juvenile justice system like you did, which you know all about." Then it's like, "Okay, I get it." So they've
Hmm.
always been, kind of behind the 8 ball, so it makes sense that they're trying to crawl out and get to that idealism that you're talking
No, but the thing that really in what you're touching upon, I'm going to piggyback upon that because there's intricacies in that. First of all, Bubba Gump, Michael Eddie Williamson, says, "Hey,
about.
I don't
Yeah,
have to sell this to you. This
yeah,
stuff sells itself." So that's one because certain things are self-evident, a la when in Malcolm X, where they're talking about giving people a choice, pouring ink in the water, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's so crystallized that you can see it in your head when you fall asleep or if you're doing something mundane. That's one. Two, within that same scene, too, as far as speaking to Charlene Ashley Judd's character and being trailer trash from the bad hair job that she has the hair dyed because that's not her natural color. So you can
yeah,
actually see like, oh, I want to be a blonde, but
yeah,
I'm not a blonde, and I want the privileges that come with being a blonde. Like just
yeah,
pulling that off it oozes out of her pores of like, yeah, I'm solely committed to
mhm.
being Charlene. I think the other thing too is she tells this dude like, yo, I may look stupid, but I'm not stupid. You're not going to separate
Oh, as soon as
me
she
from
walks
my
in,
son.
yes,
He stays
yes,
with me. Like she
yeah,
already peeped game. Like
yeah,
she
yeah,
wasn't frightened. She
good
wasn't the
point,
dumb chick in the woods falling down or whatever
good
have you.
point,
She
yeah,
was like, oh, I see this for what it is. She never once looks at him when she's like, no, that's Chris.
yeah,
And she's like, yo, in her head for her to even pull that off, she's like, I know that he has a contingency plan, even though she's
yeah,
kind of worried because she's thinking of something else. Because you could see it, like she has been through the drill, she knows the routine. When he gets away, she's like, yeah, that would be. And notice, even killed the entire time. You don't hear
mhm,
any subtleties or shakiness in her voice. She's like, yeah, nice. A cup of coffee
yeah,
would
yeah,
be a
yeah,
nice
she
idea.
keeps it moving, she does,
And
she
he's
does.
like, yeah, like
Yeah,
never
and I
skips
have
a
to
beat.
say, like, Chris is, like, one of my favorite characters in this movie, man. Like, I
Oh yeah,
like
definitely.
how Val Kilmer just carries himself in this movie.
Well, Well, he had that good stretch, man. I mean, like, yo, from playing Doc Holliday
Mhm,
around the same time to being in The Saint to being Batman himself, like
yeah.
he was on a stretch where I would say arguably like this is where he was really like
Yeah, he's on
displaying his
yeah,
acting
because
chops.
you gotta
He was on
bring your
fire.
A game to this movie, as really everybody does, no doubt.
I think they bring it out in each other. And I think the fact that, they were willing to risk it all. Cause, this is another behind the scenes thing. This movie was LA what you call it, takedown. And it was a
Yes,
pilot.
yes, yep,
So the fact that it didn't work out on the small screen goes to a credit and a testament to the acting ability of these A-listers. Like you
yeah,
get what you pay for. So if you want prime quality acting, you're going to have to like
yeah.
splurge a little bit. So bringing in Al Pacino, bringing in Robert
Yeah,
De Niro.
absolutely, and I think that's also, this film, and I'm glad you brought up that point about it not working out as a television show because when I watch this, I like watching like those cop TV shows. My favorite thing is like
Yeah.
Law and Order SVU. And that,
Dun, dun,
yeah. And
dun.
now I like the other joint where they do like organized crime. Like I love that joint, right? But
Oh man, shout out to Godfrey.
yeah, yeah, and my man Stabler, man, off that joint, right? I love that joint. But the thing is, this movie, it yeah,
Chris Maroney.
it kind of sets the tone for that because yeah, it's the cop criminal drama, but it's also like showing you what happens when they go home. Like you see, like Vincent's home
Hmm.
life is a mess, right? And then
Yeah.
like Neil is in a house with no furniture, right? Yeah,
But that
exactly,
speaks to their
exactly, but that's
characters.
the movie is willing to give you that depth into not only what these people do, but, like, why they're doing it, and when I watch, like, like, the a lot of the crime the cop shows now, they are intentional about doing that as well. Like, yeah, the movie's about solving the crime and getting the bad guy, but there's also, like,
Yeah.
the story about, you trying to adopt this person or, like, your mother is now
Hmm.
living with you and she's got dementia, like, all of these other parts are
Yeah.
being important incorporated because I think the storytelling that you see in movies like this, people on the small screen kind of took that stuff and then moved it over and said, "Yeah, these are relevant stories that help these characters and mean more to people."
Agreed, and that brings me to my next point about the pragmatism. Neil is very pragmatic. He tells you, which is something I never understood about criminals and criminality and criminology. If you're a criminal, you better be in shape. Fights last long. Like there's none of this one hitter quitter and that's it. No, you're gonna scuffle, which means your cardio better be up, which means you can't smoke, you
Mhm.
can't drink, you can't overindulge in any type of vice. So Neil is very regimented. That's why he doesn't have furniture because I love it how certain people exercise in order to maintain a lifestyle of eating bad or doing
Mhm.
bad things to their body. Then they say, "Hey, I can make up for it." A la party on the weekend, clubbing on a Saturday, going to church on a Sunday. Don't work like that. Whereas Neil, no, his mantra is because that's who he is. He's very regimented and disciplined. He tells him, "Look, my mom died a long time ago." He tells Edie this. "My dad is out there somewhere. My brother's out there somewhere," which means he has
Yeah,
no attachments. And so he can only rely upon himself. So he's seen the world and he knows he knows, I feel anyway. I think he knows that the world can be a
yeah,
very cold place. There are some beautiful things, a la him traveling all around the world, but he also understands in this life you can't have children. You can't have the picket fence, the dog, and pretend like everything is all good. Which is why I think he does be a big brother
yeah. He's
figure
definitely
for
like that.
Chris, where he checks out Charlene in the hotel with Hank Azaria's character out there getting it on with
Dominic,
her.
right? Yeah,
He does.
Dominic.
Dominic, yeah, he does tell her like, yo, you are going to give him one more time, one more chance, and if you want to leave after that because he messes up, cool. Because you know why? My word is my bond. Because I said so. Like he lets her know straight from the rip. Nah, this is what you're going to do. She fears him more than she fears
Yeah,
her husband than Chris. And I think he, above all, also recognizes like I'm around a bunch of individuals who are loose cannons. So while they're playing checkers, he plays chess. He's able to maneuver very accordingly and strategically around all the the
yeah.
chaos and
And
the
there's also,
madness.
I mean, I agree with that, and he definitely the character of Neil embodies that, and it's interesting because like his
Hmm.
character probably of all the characters in the movie is the one who I think is on the most character arc through the movie because he goes
Mm.
from, I got no furniture, I don't care about nothing, to I want Edie to go with me, right? And it's like, and one of the
Hmm.
best scenes in the movie is him and Edie in the car, and you can see Robert De Niro conveying Neil wanting to leave, but feeling like I
Yeah,
got to get with you,
vulnerability.
bro. I can't, I can't,
Yeah,
I can't, I
yeah, he's
can't let
wrestling.
this,
I
can't
can't
let
let
this
that
dude
slide.
go. And
Nah.
it's like you want him to let it go, right? But it's like
Yeah.
that's like that one moment where he just let go of his rules a little bit because he was out. If he would have just went to the airport, got on the plane, he's gone. But he's like,
Well, doesn't that sound like another Michael Mann
yeah,
movie we did earlier, where if he
right,
just eased up
a
on
little
his
bit, right?
regimented
Yes.
structure,
Yeah.
he'd be all
Yes,
right. He'd
Tom
win.
Cruise's Vincent, ironically,
Yeah.
Vincent in that movie is like Neil's character here. By the way, I just gotta say as a quick shout out,
could have been his lost brother.
How about that? They're in the same universe. That's I love that. That we
Yes.
just invented that. So if anybody ever says that, they stole that from Sticky Floors, just so y'all know. Yo, but how
Yes,
about
sir.
the fact that this movie, Heat, is made in the same year as Casino? Robert De Niro gives
I
you
was on fire.
Sam Rothstein and Neil McConaughey in the
Ooh,
same year. Oh my god. Oh,
so much so that that was dope that
right,
Nas had to
right.
mimic it.
Sweet Dream in the Street Dreams video.
Street
Yes,
Dreams.
yes. Okay, all right. And then you were saying pessimism. All right. So
Yes. So obviously, the pessimistic character in this is no one other than Al Pacino's Vincent. This dude, CJ said it eloquently. I have to hold on to it because that's my angst. It gives me my fuel. 50 said it like, I need your hate because it fuels me.
so I
And I
can use you
think
for your
that
energy.
keeps him,
Yeah.
he says it, it
Yep.
keeps me on my edge. Somehow, some way, he feels as if it would diminish his ability to perform as a very competent and
Yeah.
excelling police officer. However, if anything, it's a detriment to him as not only as a human being, but as a
Yeah.
man,
You
as
can't
a
do it.
husband.
You can't do it.
And
Yeah.
the no, you can't. I think that that's part of the overall arc with respect to the being a pessimist, being a realist, being a very observant person in the world. You're able to balance. I at least I feel you're able to balance the goods, the bads, the highs and the lows. You try to remain even keel, which is why out of all the characters, Neil is so compelling. Whereas with Vincent, one minute he's a doting stepfather who is easy to be warm and welcoming to a
Mhm.
child. I mean, he's the one who saves the
Yeah.
child from Michael. So it's doubling down on that. But in the same and the scene, and excuse me, the part of the opening scenes of the movie itself is him embracing his wife and them connecting
Yeah.
on an
Right from the
intimate
beginning. Yeah.
level. Um, yeah, so you see that he has that capability. I mean, this is a guy who's been
Mhm.
married twice before his present wife. So he's on
Yeah.
his third marriage. So he
Yeah.
is a romantic. He does understand like he needs that feminine energy in his life. He craves it. He wants partnership. But you get the feeling that no, his true wife is
Absolutely.
his job and his wife is his mistress because he's
Yeah. No
running out of that
question. Yeah.
hospital, going down the
No.
stairs,
Yeah.
giddy,
No.
smiling, ready
Yeah.
to kill
It's true.
somebody.
I mean, yeah. That is exactly what it is. And in a way, Vincent is living Neil's philosophy without actually
Oh yeah,
stating it. But just like you said, for him to run
definitely.
out, his stepdaughter really, just got done trying to kill herself in his bathtub in his hotel room.
Mm,
He's about to
right.
be ex-wife number 3 is there, but it's like, I got a shot at Neil, I gotta take it. And that's what it
I
is. So
got
yeah, you're right. That is his first wife is always gonna be the streets.
and that in
Yeah,
itself
the
sounds crazy.
yeah, it
For the
does. Yeah, it
streets.
does. And then like, we kind of been talking about it, but this movie, it recognizes that I have Robert De Niro and I have Al Pacino. So let them interplay off each other, and also
Mhm.
let me have them reflect each other in ways that gives that one kind of gives you insight into the other.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that's the dual the excuse me, that's the duality and the mirror
Mhm.
reflection that very much is seen throughout the film. And not just embodied by Neil and Vincent, but their crews as a whole. I mean, like they both have scenes respectively where
Yeah,
they're out
very
to dinner
intentionally
with
done.
their
Yes,
families
yeah, yeah, yeah.
respectively.
Yep.
And you both see that they have a wild card, if you will. So for example, what's his name, we just spoke about him, Bosco, he's Ted Levine, that is. He's in the scene in which he has the
Yeah, his
blonde haired
wife. Yeah,
woman
his
on his
wife's sitting on
lap
his
and
lap.
they're
Yeah,
giddy and they're
everything. Yeah.
flirtatious, and they're the ones who are a little bit more on the edge. I would compare them to say like Michael and
Absolutely.
his wife,
Yes.
where they're the ones who are a little bit
Absolutely.
more like
Yeah.
touchy feely, et cetera, et cetera. The respective leaders in Vince and in Neil, like Vince is all over his woman. Like Justine and him are off in their own thing in their own world, and she even tells him that bestial sense, that savagery, is the part
Yeah,
of the
she likes
stuff that I
about
like about you, like that animal magnetism. And then in turn, you see Vince. He goes off. Excuse me, Neil. He goes off to the side, and he's like, "Hey, Edie, it
yeah,
wasn't just a
yeah,
one
yeah.
night stand. I was really feeling like." you're like, oh snap, he's got vulnerability. He's sentimental. He's emotional. He's touching into wanting some type
Yeah.
of companionship. And so I think that that gives a glimpse to the viewer and the audience goer, the movie goer and the audience, like, hey, even these two guys have a soft spot. And this is the reason why they're so charismatic, because it's not just them being automatons. And then last but not least, I would compare Michaeletti and his wife to Chris and Charlene, where they're on the edge of both. Like they're happy, they're giddy, and they're part of the crowd, and they love the sense of being part of a family, a bigger thing, and they're in their comfort zone. And they feel like, hey, this is the way it should always be. Us sharing a meal together, us indulging in adult conversation, us being part of something bigger than
Yeah, and I mean,
ourselves.
and the movie, they do it with that dinner scene, and then they do it in the scene where you see Vincent and his crew running surveillance on Neil's crew, and then you see
Oh
Neil and
yeah,
his crew running
yeah.
surveillance on Vincent and them too, right?
It's
So
on
it's
him.
like they're really, you're right. The crew and the leaders of the crews are like the flip sides of each other, right? The two sides of the
Yeah.
same coin, but it works. Like it works. Like it doesn't.
Well, they always
That
say
cops and
that the
criminals
gang and
are
blood.
basically the same
Yeah,
anyway.
and
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. I remember there was a woman once who told me that. She said, I've dated criminals, I've dated crooks, and they're basically, I mean, crooks and cops, and they're basically the same.
well, it's the same thing about what the preacher, the
And pimps.
pastor,
Yeah.
and the pimp. So being loquacious, and
Yeah.
they're able to do this and that and the
Yeah.
third. Getting into the mind of a criminal, sometimes you
Yeah.
got to
Well,
be a
that's
criminal.
that's
Um,
like what Deep Cover is about, and Donnie
mhm.
Brasco, and also Al Pacino.
Yeah,
Donnie Brasco, we probably do that
I
one
mean,
day. But like that's the point, right? You get too deep undercover. Like that happened to my man Crockett back
yeah,
in Miami Vice back
mhm.
in the day when
Yeah,
I forgot
yeah,
what his undercover name was, but Barnett or something like
yeah.
that. But he got too
Hmm.
deep, right? Like
Well,
that's happened.
it's the same thing. You saying too deep. Same thing
Yeah.
with In Too Deep with Omar Epps and LL Cool J,
That
where
we're gonna do that one day.
literally.
That wait, with Dwayne Giddens, God Giddens, we gotta do that one day.
That's crazy. This dude
We
called
gotta do
himself
that one day,
God.
man. We gotta do that one
Woo.
day.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But then that goes to the next and last thing about the culture that I want to speak upon, and that is accountability or the lack thereof, as displayed in the relationships in Heat. So that rapport that these individuals have, respectively, amongst themselves in their crew, so that intertwines with also them and their respective spouses. So what I mean by that is, how can you appreciate life and bring life into this world, a
Mhm.
la Chris, and like in the case of Vince and being a stepfather, but knowing that one, you may have to
Yeah.
murder someone or
Or be
be
murdered because of how you operate.
executed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? There it's almost like the home life for these characters, and I think you see it the best with Chris and Charlene. Chris and Charlene's home life is like a fantasy world. The real world they live in
Mm.
is you might get shot, you might have to shave all your hair off. You know you know, you might have to be with the cops with Dominic, like, that's, like, the stuff that really might happen to you, you know what I mean? Like, that's the real life. The life where y'all are, like, going out to dinner, like you said, date night, that's not the real thing.
Mm-mm. Well, and that's the funny thing too, because they show the scene of Michael's wife when she hears, and again, think about this scene that I'm touching upon. One, you see Lily, that is Mike, what you call it, Dennis Haysbert's
His
significant
girlfriend.
other, wife, girlfriend,
That's the
boyfriend,
Allstate guy,
and
right?
she find
Yeah, the Allstate. Yeah,
yeah,
the
and he's
Allstate man. Every time I
he's
see him, I
also.
say I say, "Man, you're in good hands with Allstate."
Well, I'm thinking of Serrano in Major League, but
Oh,
nonetheless,
that's right.
again,
Yeah, that's
or even the
right. Yes.
or even the president in
Yes.
24 with
Yes.
Kiefer
Yes.
Sutherland. But nonetheless, I mean, his catalog, his
Yes.
filmography
Yeah.
is deep. But nonetheless, my point is that Lily finds out in a bar that he's deceased. And the scene prior to that, that they have together, is her telling
Yeah.
him that she's proud of him for enduring and persevering amongst the madness of some dude who's supposed to be working within the
That's ripping them
system.
off.
Like he's trying to give it a fair shake. It's ripping him off. I get 25% of your cut. And if you don't like it, go talk to the cop because he knows the
Yeah.
deal. What? So then in turn, you know, she finds out about her loved one's expiration via a news report that they're trying to sensationalize. And then in turn, it flashes to Charlene. And then the next scene after that is Michael's wife standing
Finds
holding
out
a
he's
mug.
dead.
And it was like she
Yeah,
had no clue. Yeah, like she was like
yeah.
startled, almost flabbergasted, like she couldn't comprehend that this is what he does and these are the ramifications of
Yeah, and you
said
know what's
action.
interesting is that I actually went back and watched the deleted scenes. You can find deleted scenes for this movie, and one of the deleted
Mhm,
scenes is Michael's character coming home after the bearer bonds robbery, and he comes home with his
mhm,
money, and he puts like it on the island, and the wife immediately takes it and
mhm.
hides it. So she's aware. I mean, they all know, but it's like that scene intentionally shows you how much she knows. Yeah, this is the life that we chose.
But then that goes to the accountability. Like this comes
Yes.
with the territory. And how can you be a parent? How can you be a mother? How can you express some type of devotion to life? Because again, they're bringing life in the world when you're, you know, you're basically
Yeah,
an
that's
accomplice. And I
exactly what
think
they
they
are, yeah.
go and when and the fact that they're men, even though they're the heads of the household, talks about their whole house being built on sand and being corrupt and them
Yeah,
being immoral or at the very
yeah.
least ambiguous
But, you
and
know, like,
ambivalent.
nobody ever thinks they're gonna get caught though, man. No, nobody
Yeah.
everybody thinks they're going to get out. You know, every
Well, that was the
every
whole premise of the movie where they were like, "This is
that's
our
how it
last
always
big score,"
is.
and their original score was to steal
Yeah,
platinum and other precious metals. And then all of a sudden, Neil gets the feeling where and then it's solidified by him hearing the sheriff's officer backing into the trailer,
yeah,
excuse me, the tractor portion. And then all of a sudden, he's like, "Yo,
yeah.
we're walking away."
Yeah, but it's
That's
like,
it.
you know, whenever I think about it, I always think about an American Gangster. That scene where Denzel Washington's
Mm,
character
another good
is
movie.
talking to the guy that they were getting the opium from, and he tells him,
Mm,
you know, there's a difference between quitting and giving up. You know,
yeah.
like there's a difference. And it's like these guys heat and so many gangster movies, and we always see that, like or robbery movies, especially. People are always trying to get that last big score. And that's usually when you go down the tubes, is when you the last one that you try right before you try to get out is when you go down.
Well, the thing is, would you rather be carried by six or judged by
Yeah.
12?
How about neither? How about just get a four how about just get a
Walking away.
401k and just just be a regular dude, man. But anyway,
Some
all right, let's get into this to the cake, man. So we gotta obviously there's gonna be a lot of slices of cake for this, man. I'm not gonna belabor it, but
yeah.
I'm gonna hit a couple things. So first, Wayne Grow. Wayne Grow is such a monster.
Scuzzy. Scuzzy,
He's such a
Scuzz Bucket.
monster in this movie. Like Wayne Grow, like so the title for this show, right? This is cops versus crooks versus villains. Cause it's like
Oh, he's a
like
villain.
Vincent is trying to get Neil, but
Psychopath.
Neil is trying to get Van Zant and Wayne Grow. Because Van Zant and Wayne Grow are like real villains. Wayne Grow goes from being like, yes,
He's a
he's a
serial
serial
killer.
rapist, he's a serial rapist and murderer,
Yeah.
right? He's like a psychopath, and he's like he has no,
Horrible.
he's like he breaks all the codes of criminality, and it's a great
Rat.
villain. He's so bad in the movie that it makes Neil and everybody else seem kind of good by comparison. So I just liked how the characters played. Shout outs to the dude who played him. I know you're gonna name the names in a second, but shout outs
Kevin
to
Ga-
him. Great job with the villain. I hate Wayne Grow. And I love that his name is just Wayne Grow. It's not like John Wayne Grow. You don't know if Wayne Grow's the first name, last name. You don't know. You don't care because he's just evil. So that was the first thing. We talked about the scenes with Neil and the Neil the scene in the diner with Neil and Vincent. Just a great scene. I just love watching. You can just watch that scene by itself on a YouTube clip and be good with that. Um, the robbery planning, I love how they show the intelligence of the crew for every thing that they pull off, especially in the
Yeah.
beginning. You know, you see them individually buying the things that they need to be able to do the job. Well, later on, when it comes, well, like you said, when they're trying to steal the platinum and everything, Neil is working, looking at a book about precious metals. You know, later on, they figure out how to like rewire the alarm system for the bank. I just like that. And by the way, I never realized. I This is one of the things I saw. Maybe people have noticed this before, but the beginning of this movie is copied basically by The Dark Knight. That's really like it's
Mm,
like that the beginning of that, like the pacing of it and the idea of like the masks and how everything is orchestrated so well. It's kind of like Christopher Nolan was like, yo, I like that, man. I like what Michael Mann did. Shout outs to that. And then last but not least, man, yo, the downtown shootout scene, even though it's implausible, in the movie theaters, it was so loud. The every shot, every
yeah,
bullet, it was just so
that's
it was
surround sound.
amazing. And you when you watch it on TV, it just doesn't do it justice. They should put this back in the movie theaters. If they did, I would watch it because the sound of it, it sound you could it feels like you can hear the sounds of bullets reverberating around the buildings in like downtown LA. So that's my
Well,
cake. I
first,
could give you the whole thing, but that's what I'm going with.
what kind of bullets were they putting through? Like those are
Yo,
beyond armor piercing. Like them joints
yeah,
going
the
through
real stuff.
cars
Yeah,
like Swiss
yeah. I
cheese.
mean, they had the top level stuff. And here's the thing. LAPD has always had that because LAPD has always had close relationships with the military. So Los Angeles Police Department
Hmm.
has access to weapons that most police departments don't. So the fact that Al Pacino and them,
Mm,
they're like, yo, we can get it with y'all too. That makes sense. Right?
yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, I mean, that just goes to the what was it called? Ramshot or Ramrod or Rampart, the Rampart joint out in LA, where literally these guys were becoming immobilized as to a
Yes.
paramilitary
Yes.
group because the
Hmm.
military had purchased too many weapons, and they needed to, try and get
Yep.
recoup some of those funds because there were no active wars. And then that also speaks to the criminality of just being a so-called minority in those particular areas. So you have these groups with tanks. What
Yeah.
do you need a tank for? Shock and awe. That's why they have it,
Yeah.
the propaganda. And at that same time, you have all of these cops and robber movies, which they're basically conditioning the audience to say, hey, the cops wear blue and they're good, and then the bad guys they wear black, and they're in these so-called urban jungles, and therefore we have to rely upon warfare. But then that also speaks to the name of Wayne Grove. So Wayne can be spelled Wain. It's an archaic term for wagon. Wane can also be used as in waning off a
Mhm.
bottle or like easing off of a bottle. It's also about progressively smaller parts and the visible surface being illuminated. And then you have grow, which is obvious. So I would talk about the contradiction in this guy as in his appetite growing and lusting for nothing, because he tells you, I'm about that action. When he goes into the bar and the guy's like, yo,
Yeah.
speak to this
Yeah.
guy, tell him
Yeah.
whatever, whatever. So his whole thing is about trying to be the most
He's a
hedonistic,
monster, man.
evil man
Man
that
Girl's
he,
a monster.
yeah, like he's
Yeah.
feeding into it, which goes, I think, if anything, if that's the hate I have, it would be for Wayne Grove. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the good stuff, the deli, excuse me, the bakery that CJ has opened up. So I'm going with right now piece of pie, and I like apple pie. So I'm running with the downtown shootout
Fantastic.
scene as well. CJ already spoke about it, but I guess that's just the cops and robber kid in me who,
It's
bang
amazing.
bang shoot 'em up. Whatever have you. Um, then I like Danishes. I'm rocking with the just the writing and the screenplay. I mean, for the best way I can describe it is, yes, this is a very simplistic, straightforward movie. However, it's very complex, very intricate. It's multifaceted. There's a tremendous amount of subplots, character development, and then which segues into my next part, which is the
Very
cinematography.
well done.
what caps the scene that capsulizes this and embodies this and symbolizes this so well is that hotel slash airport scene where the
Oh
lighting
yeah.
comes in and
Yes.
shining
Yeah.
on the one person, and then the next minute the darkness has engulfed the next person, and it's not shown in a way of like evil and good. It's more about
Mhm.
camouflage. It's more about illumination and actually using it as a flashlight, if you will, to try and discover who's where and what, when, and why, and how, and the maneuvering around the bricks and stuff, and the cornering and the clearing out of spaces. Done excellent, excellent. The shadowing,
Yeah.
love
And
it,
can I
love it.
just add that Michael
Please.
Mann knows how to make a movie where it's based in LA. He
Oh yeah,
understands LA as a character too. So you see it here, you
Yeah.
see it in Collateral as well. He knows how to
Mhm.
create that feeling of being in a big city like this that can be very
Mhm.
full and yet also very empty at certain points. So much of it is like
Yeah.
these one-on-one quiet spaces, like even that last scene, they're in an airfield, and yet
Mhm.
it feels like it's just the 2 of
Mhm.
them. He's just very he
Yeah.
understands how to do that very well.
Yeah, well, it's a dance and it's choreographed very well. That's why I think that that scene embodies the spirit and the essence
Absolutely.
of the movie because primarily it's about these two individuals,
Yep.
the yin and the yang, trying to see who's who and testing themselves and judging and basing themselves off of the other one. It's a push and pull. And just the way that they weave and bob through the scene, excuse me, through the crowd and such. Like, how is Al Pacino supposed to
Yeah, right.
find
Yeah,
Robert De
yeah,
Niro's
yeah,
character?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's not practical, but
yeah,
it's like he says,
yeah,
my gut says that Neil
yeah,
is still here. And because he's thinking, like, what would
yeah.
I do? I'm not going to
Yeah, he
let
couldn't
Wayne
let
Grove
Wayne Grove go, man.
mess up.
Wayne Grove was his
No,
undoing.
I think Wayne Grove embodies the essence of his undoing, which is, hey, you've been doing great so far going
Mhm.
straight. But when you came to that fork in the road,
Yeah,
you chose poorly. As the knight said in the Last Crusade,
yeah,
choose wisely. And Neil didn't
wisely.
choose wisely. And I think uh, we've talked about him ad nauseum, but I gotta give a shout out to Val Kilmer. That's my
Yeah,
dude, Chris. He is the tragic hero. And I would argue, this is my hot take, that the so-called villains, excuse me, robbers in this movie, tying in with the theme and the title of the movie of our episode, they are the true
mhm.
heroes. The cops go about breaking all types of rules, throwing the what's called I think his name is Dylan in this movie. He throws it through
Oh, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, they
glass of
say
his apartment.
he's become
He's like, but this is
he's
the guy.
become
This is
a
the witness. He's
reformed
the
good
one
guy,
who
reformed good citizen, yeah, after that.
but that's the thing. He's the one who reported the criminals, and isn't that part of like Crime Stoppers? Like, see something, say something. Like, the whole point is like, yo, look, if and shout out to my man Harry Rollins, who's a former singer. Well, he is a singer, but part of a rock and roll band. But nonetheless, he's the one who reports them. That's how
Yeah,
they get the tip, the
yeah.
real tip. Like everything else, Tone Loke's character, Richard, he just
The
tells him
slick
like
thing,
slick,
yes,
and then all
I
of a
like
sudden,
how they that's good
yeah,
detective work, how they pulled that all together.
yeah, and I just think that like getting back to Chris is that he exudes the fact that like he's a hopeless romantic. He is who he is. Why? Because he's been in the system and he's able to recognize the one pure thing in his life, which
Yeah,
is his relationship, which
yeah,
spawned his son because his son was created out of love. And then in turn, he sees how Charlene accepts him
yeah.
for who he is. And then last but not least, like CJ alluded to, it's the cast.
Cooking,
So again,
cooking,
Al Pacino, Robert
cooking,
De Niro,
cooking.
Val Kilmer,
Cooking.
John Voight,
Wait, hold
Tom
up. Let me just
Sizemore.
give John Voight. John Voight, every little thing he's
Woo!
in, every little scene with that like kind of almost I'm going bald on top, but
Mullet,
he got like the
ponytail,
Hulk
yeah.
Hogan from like 92 joint, but with the mustache, but it's working in this joint, man. It works.
Yeah,
Right.
the hammer
He
mustache,
got the
right?
joint.
Or the
Right.
mustache, the
Nothing right.
handlebars.
Tell him fade the sides, let a wolf on top. He got the reverse of that joint,
What
but it's working.
what is it like? Business in the front, party
Yeah,
in the
but he's
back, or whatever
working.
type.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. You
Oh
said
man, no, it's cool. No, we got to touch upon that. Uh, Diane Venora, Amy Brenneman,
cooking, cooking,
Ashley Judd, Micheletti Williamson. Um, we already talked
cooking.
about Ted Levine, Dennis Haysbert. Oh, got to give a shout out to Roger Van Zant, aka
Yeah.
William
Yes.
Fichtner. This dude is in
Yes.
almost
Yeah.
everything and kills it. Natalie
Yes.
Portman, Tom
Yes.
Noonan, we already
Child
talked about,
actress. Yeah.
Kevin Gage, Hank Azaria. Like this thing, like the people in here, Danny Trejo, I
Yes.
can't forget him. We already talked about Henry Rollins, Ricky Harris, Tone Loke. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, yo, the laundry list of all the actors and actresses. I mean, who can forget? Shout out to Jeremy Piven. This dude is
Right.
always in like small
Right.
scenes and
Yeah.
kills it
Yeah.
every
With the shirt.
time,
With
yo.
the shirt. My kids gave me the shirt.
Yeah, my daughter gave me
I
this
don't care.
shirt. I don't care
Right.
who gave it to you.
Look. Yes.
Yo,
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that he is Jeremy Piven. He's only in it for 2 minutes. You're like, oh, that's Jeremy Piven. Right. Yeah.
give me Piven. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? And then last but not least, Xander Berkeley, who plays the emasculated Ralph. Like this dude,
Oh
sit down,
man.
Ralph.
Shout outs to Ralph, man.
You
Shout out
can
to
do
Ralph. Ralph
everything. You can
no,
sleep with
Ralph
my
didn't.
wife, but you can't
Ralph
watch
didn't
my
know, man.
TV.
Ralph didn't know what he was getting into. Ralph didn't. He's
And he
like,
tried to tell him,
you
like,
know,
yo,
this
I
is
had
right.
no
You a
idea.
cop too? I'm in your house. You might shoot me.
Yeah, you might
Yeah,
what? Yo, and the fact that his wife was greasy about it, like that's how you know she was on some vindictive, like I'm
yeah,
intentionally trying
yeah.
to hurt you. Talking about this is the
Right.
closure I needed to be over you. And then in the hospital talking about can we get past this?
Yeah. No, you
What?
can't.
You there's a lot of strong words I
How
could use
about
right
how
now.
about when he
Start
comes home? When Vincent comes home, he like, "Are we going out somewhere?" Because she was getting dressed to go out with Ralph, and he's like, "Oh,
oh,
you're
you
going out."
going out. What? Yo,
Yeah,
I'm not
it's a
condoning it, but I
it's a
understand how things can
it's a
escalate.
great movie, man. It's very well done. Shout outs to the
Ah,
cast.
woo,
They were doing it the whole time. All right,
definitely.
so we do got a little like some things we didn't like so much, right? So I'm gonna say mine.
Mhm,
I could. This is probably like the epitome of nitpicking because I love this movie. I
mhm,
didn't particularly. I don't. I'll just say I didn't like the daughter subplot. The not important subplot.
mhm,
It just didn't work for me. It felt like it kind of broke up the pacing a little bit towards the end
mm.
because I know why it's there because they got to give Vincent something to do while Neil is trying to get out. But I would have rather have seen Vincent like maybe kind of working the streets again. Maybe he talks to Tone Loc and his brother again. Maybe something else happens. It's not bad. Nothing in the movie is bad. But if I was gonna say one thing I didn't like, it would be
I would offer a little bit of pushback, meaning like I told CJ in the pre-production meeting that it humanizes him, it grounds him. You don't think of him so much as being obsessed with the job. I mean, Justine's rationalization about, well, you're so devoted to the job that pushed me away into the arms of another.
that part
Yeah,
doesn't
I'm
make
not
any sense.
buying that. Not for
And he is devoted to the job
you
because he
need to
does leave her. He does leave the daughter to go get Neil.
oh, hop, skip, and jumping, giddiness in his step. But I would just argue that, look, you're accountable for your own actions, thoughts, words, and deeds. You can't put that off on somebody else. It's not as if he told you to go do it. He can't make you do anything. You have to basically hold yourself responsible for your choices and decisions. And with that said, the person who actually relishes in making demonic decisions, Wayne Grove, I can't stand this dude. If I didn't say it before, he is
Mhm.
scuzz, and I would use
Yeah.
stronger words,
Wayne Grow is a villain. He's a
scum,
villain's
all that.
villain.
No, but this dude, the fact that Neil let him escape, like, yo, you're so on point. How did you let this
Well, the
dude
cops
get
were there though,
away?
man. That they had that he couldn't shoot
This
him.
guy is at
He
least
couldn't
six
shoot
feet
him in front
tall.
of the cops, and
Could have put his
he scurried away like the rat he is.
he could have put his
He
foot in
scurried
his
away like the rat
midsection
he
in his
is, man. Like that's what rats do. They scurry. He scurried away.
no, he could have had his boot on his neck and pointed the gun in his mouth like, yo,
He
if you
could
move, that's
he could
it.
have. But you know what though? At least he got him in the end.
And you know what? I don't think it
It
was
was
worth the
no,
risk.
obviously no.
I wanted Neil to win. I wanted Neil to get
So
away.
that brings
And
me
that's
to the questions. All right.
yes,
First
sir.
question I have, and you just brought right to the sentence. Is this movie as good, better, or worse if Neil escapes?
I think it's
Okay.
better. And the reason why is I'm always rooting
The
for
bad guys?
no, no, definitely not. Definitely not. But what I will say is I'm always rooting for the underdog. And in this case, Neil is the underdog. Here's the guy who has lived a very calculated lifestyle. And the first time that he indulges in some shape or form of humanitarianism, it comes to bite him in the butt. And I just feel like the movie would have been dope on some like Steve McQueen. What's the movie that Pierce Brosnan
Oh, you're
remade?
talking
Where he's stealing
the
the
Thomas
pictures.
Crown Affair.
Yeah, I think that if it would have ended something like along those lines,
Yeah.
woo, I would have loved it. Him and 80 on somewhere in New Zealand or actually being in Fiji, which goes back to your point about Michael Mann utilizing LA as another
Mhm.
actor or actress. The fact that he talks about the lights and the
And compares it
illumination
to
leaning itself to the end is full circle. It's a total 180, 360, however you wish to look at it, where he's saying like, yo, this is the city of angels, angels,
Mhm.
illumination, light, the heavens. And then here we are. It reminds me of that painting. I forget if it's Michelangelo or not, where the angels touching and shown in the Batman Superman joint, where the scene with Lex Luthor, where he's talking
Oh, the
about his
painting
father, and
upside
there's
down.
that
Yeah.
painting.
Mhm. I know what you
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's something
mean.
along
Okay.
those
So you want
lines.
Neil to get out. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely,
cool. All right.
definitely.
Next question. What happens to Chris after this movie?
Chris loses it. He's nothing without his wife. So he either goes tries to see her again and gets bodied, or he's off somewhere gambling and ends up dead due to gambling debts, or maybe with a
I
needle in
I
his arm.
I
Yeah,
agree
he's nothing.
1000%. 1000.
Yeah, he doesn't have a
So my
happily
next
ever after.
question, my
Okay.
next question reminds me that so Dominic is actually Chris and Charlene's child's name. The guy that Charlene was best with was
Yeah.
named Alan. So my question is, do Alan and Charlene continue to see each other after this?
No, no. Hank Azaria is perfect in the sleazy dude. He's like, go to the window. If you want out, this is it. Like, yo, this dude is off the
No,
chain. I knew I
yeah,
shouldn't mess with
yeah,
that. And he
yeah,
fills in with
yeah.
another.
I would like to think that he wouldn't, but I think he does though.
No, he's a weasel. He's you know how squirrels are part of the rat family?
Yeah.
Well, he's the weasel. The weasel's part of that same family too. And he's the weasel. Wayne Gross is a little snake slash squirrel or whatever.
Charlene
Rat.
strikes me as a person who probably has some crazy cat. So I think that crazy cat is hard to wear.
But yeah, but she don't need him. She was looking at him
Yes,
as like an out. You
agreed,
know what I mean? And she was going to monkey branch. She was going to upgrade. Yeah, I'll use him for a
agreed.
little bit, some stability for Dominic, and then we out until I find better.
All right, continuing with the what happens at the end. So what happens to Edie?
Oh, she's shell shocked, yo. She never goes out on another date again. She hates men. She becomes a lesbian.
Do you
I'm
think?
dead serious, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that disparagingly. I think that the fact is, she trusted in
She
this
got
guy. You
burned?
see
Yeah,
the look on her face, and she's like, "Yo, never." Either she becomes celibate, or she becomes a lesbian, where she's so
she
turned
got
off,
burned.
where she
That's what.
literally, yeah, she's literally not with it anymore. She has cats and
Do
becomes a
you think the
spinster.
money is in the car?
Oh, I
So
know the money's in the
hopefully
car.
she at least got the money. At least hopefully she at least.
No, I think she walks out. I think she's like comatose and she's just like she doesn't know what she's doing. She walks because you can see it. She's looking at him like, I
Yeah,
chose you. I chose you.
yeah,
Amongst it all, you could have I would have ran
yeah,
with you, but you just looked at me and
yeah.
you let me go. I waited in the car. I kept it. I mean, I my heart empathizes for her. I'm not saying any of these things in a negative condemnation of her as a person. I think that she's just like the innocent here. And now that's her scene of innocence lost, where good girls go
I
bad.
hope she at least got the money, but maybe not. All right, my last question,
Nah.
and this one I actually probably should ask. This is my first question. Is it? Do you think that Neil was always watching Charlene and knew that she was cheating on Chris?
Definitely. Yo, first of all, this is a guy who has to remain in control. He has to have his finger on the pulse at all times. He needs to know the people he employs. Remember, he's calculated everything down
Yeah,
to the second. When these dudes are like, yo,
yeah,
8 seconds. Oh, when he's talking about, like, yo, the key. And he's like, what key? He's like, what?
yeah,
Let it bleed. Like, who
yeah.
says that? Let
When
it
when
bleed.
I've seen this movie in the past, I've thought I at first I used to think that it was coincidence that he was taking that phone call outside of the hotel room. This is the time when I watched it and I was like, "Oh, he's obviously watching her because he knew that she was
Mm-hmm.
there." That's why he asked Chris, "Is she does
You don't
she
ask
have
questions.
anything on the side?" And Chris said, "No," and he was
Yeah.
like, "Are you sure?" Now I understood like
Mhm.
why he did this. So yeah, I agree with that.
No, he doesn't ask questions that
Yeah,
he doesn't know the answer to, and the fact that he asked Chris gauges just how
yeah.
naive Chris is in regards
Yeah,
to his
Chris doesn't know, man.
relationship.
He's too
Nah,
busy
not at
gambling
all.
in this
Simping.
super.
Well, that too.
All right, man. What's the question?
So, with that being said, I got some questions for you. So, was this movie greenlit because of
Yeah,
the cast?
I think part of it was the cast. Part of it was yes, the cast. I'm not even gonna bury the lead.
Okay.
It's the cast. It's the cast.
No.
Yeah. Like if
Why
you
does
go to if you can go to a pitch meeting and say, I got a movie and I'm gonna do it with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino.
Oh
Yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna make
no
that.
doubt, no
I mean,
question.
the Irishman is
Yeah.
6 hours long on Netflix because it's got Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in it
Mhm.
with Joe Pesci. Good.
Woo. Teaming up
Right.
once more again. Um, so why does Justine think it's appropriate to ask about reconciliation at the hospital?
Justine is out of touch with reality, man. That's really what it is. She's out of touch with reality, and I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt of being in a stressful situation where her teenage daughter, or almost teenage daughter, just tried to commit suicide, and
Mm,
she's fried in that moment. But there's no chance that Vince is going back with her like that. And I like how he handled.
yeah.
He was like, he could have been like, "What?" but instead, he kept it. He kept it classy. He was like, "Look, well, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, he did.
I'm just, it's not.
he
It's not.
he
It's
did
not
allow
you.
her
It's
to
me."
save face.
He get eat her with that joke. But he was classy about
That's dope. That's dope. Is this an indictment as to how police are pursued? Excuse me, how police pursue criminals and attempt to solve
I think
cases?
like, and we've hit on this a couple times in the movie. I think it's really showing it's a razor thin line between being a cop and a criminal. And the movie just kind of says, depending on what side of the coin you're on, you'll think your way is right.
Hmm. I'm going to borrow one from one of your pre-production questions. Would you prefer that they make a sequel or a prequel?
So I actually read that they're going to make a prequel. They talked about making a prequel with what's the guy? Trying to think of his name that played I just can't think of his name right now. Anyway, it's the guy. Yeah,
I see
it's
it in your
it's the
face.
guy who played Kylo Ren in the Star Wars. Adam
Oh,
Driver.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
Adam Driver. Yeah, so
driver.
they talked about making a prequel with Adam Driver as Neo. Um,
Mm,
I might watch that.
hmm,
I might watch it. I might watch a prequel. Sequel wise, I wouldn't want to watch a movie that didn't have Robert De Niro in it, and if Al Pacino still
gotcha.
is, but I would definitely watch a movie where maybe like a movie about Neil and his crew getting together. Like how did they form? I would
Mm,
watch that.
I dig it. I dig it. Um, why does every character that Al Pacino portray have a scene or scenes where he yells?
That's that's his thing. Like how LL always has a hat on. Like he just
Mm. Well, that's because he was
Yeah,
bald and
but
you
like
didn't
he
know
always
it.
had a hat, right? And it was like you got to say
Mm,
LL has to have a hat on all the time. Al Pacino has to go
mm.
nuts a little bit in every film, right? and and it's like it works. Like when he does she's got a great hat. Like when he does that, it's great in the movie. It's one of the best scenes in the whole thing.
You got your
Yeah,
head
you got your
stung
head
of
all the
it.
way up in it, right? Like he's funny. When he goes off in the devil's advocate, it's funny. Like he's good at that, right? Like it never seems in alignment with the scene, but it worked. But
Son of a
yeah, I
woman.
mean that one it works. He got an Academy Award for that, right? It
Well,
works. So
mhm.
I think now it's almost like his catchphrase is going nuts at some
Yeah.
point in the movie, and people love it. And guess what? I'm one of them people. So yeah, keep doing it, Al.
Mm.
You and anything else, now I expect him to see it. I expect him to do it.
Okay. And since you're going with what you like, why don't you tell the audience and myself, man, what do you rate this joint?
Five
How many
boxes, man.
boxes
I'm
you
not
giving it, man?
even not even burying the lead on that, man. This is on my Mount Rushmore of films, man. My four favorite films of all time: Heat, Carlito's Way, Casino, and Godfather One. This is there, so
I
not
dig it.
even a question.
I
What
dig it.
about you?
Nah, nah, I echo that, man. 5 boxes. That's it. Nothing
Yeah,
needs to be said.
it's if like I mean, like I said, I used the example of pizza in the beginning. I love pizza. Like I'll take a good slice of pizza over almost over anything. This is a good slice of pizza. Like you don't have to put it on. You don't need oregano on it. You don't need pepperoni. You don't need sausage. You don't need pepper. Just it's perfect the way it is if it's done right. This is the cop crook movie done right. So 5 boxes.
Man, you're making me hungry. I could go for a
Right,
slice
I'm gonna
right
go get one
now,
after
man.
this. We're gonna get one
I,
after this done.
I actually like vegetables on my joint, but I
But
take it, man.
we ain't from California. California, they put everything on the pizza, man. Shrimp,
No, no, no. I said
potatoes,
no,
pineapples.
no.
I know.
I'm
We
good.
talk about regular straight pizza. All right, well,
No,
then hit the
no.
closing so we can get this food then.
Well, I'll tell you like this, man. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, they love playing cops and robbers. Matter of fact, they've done so longer than probably actual cops and robbers. So Let's get into this closing. In the involuted, woven context of Michael Mann's Heat, the film transcends typical action cinema, delving in deep into the psychological tapestry of its characters through insightful dialogue. The multifaceted narrative showcases a well developed storyline that intricately weaves together the lives of professional thieves and dedicated law officers. The dialogue is profoundly complex, allowing characters to articulate their innermost thoughts and emotions eloquently and insightfully, devoid of cliches. This ability to communicate to poetically adds layers to their personas, making their struggles and aspirations even more poignant. Yet, despite their articulate exchanges, the fates remain inexorably, understandingly, and underscoringly the tragic nature of their intertwined
There it is,
destinies.
man. And speaking of tragically intertwined destinies, next week we will be talking about Joker 2,
I
which
love how
which
you
will be
put that out
coming
there.
out. So that's gonna be straight from the theaters. Me and Mr. Will, we're gonna go to the movie, then we're gonna come on here and talk about it. So heavy
Yes,
spoilers.
sir.
Be aware, be prepared. We're gonna get into it. They got Joker, they got Harley Quinn. We're gonna see how they deliver it. You want to see it and hear us
There's
talk about it. Come back next week to listen to the Sticky Floors podcast to hear us do that. Once again, the Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify Podcasts. We are on YouTube, where once again, we are trying to grow our channel. We are on a push to get 300 subscribers by October 31st. And we need your assistance to do that. So please like, subscribe, and share. And we will see you next week.